All right, in this section, we're going to talk about text, what we can do with text, how to make text, how to edit text, including how to make paragraphs and how we might edit those too. Gump's here, and he's going to be looking over my shoulder and
I'm literally looking over his shoulder to tell you the
literal.
truth.
Yeah, he is.
What we want to do is we want to, for this demonstration, I'm going to open up an image that we've all seen before. It's the Dune picture. I know we're probably getting tired of seeing some of these.
Hey, man, you really
Ducky's
need to
gotta
put
be in there
Ducky in there, dude. Ducky's got to be there.
These guys have been ribbing me about
Just
Ducky.
come on, just grab Ducky, shake him down, throw him in there.
Should Ducky make a cameo appearance in this
comes
section?
Ducky,
Here
baby.
comes the Ducky. Oh, gee, here comes the Ducky. Woo!
All right, I'm happy now.
Okay.
Well, not that big. Holy Moses.
Let's just make him really itty
There
bitty
you go.
small. Put him down in the corner.
There you
Put on
go.
top.
Ducky makes a cameo.
Ducky's cameo appearance there.
I promised I wouldn't do that.
Moving right
and I
along
did
to
it anyway.
text. I'm the world's worst. I get you off subject, on subject, bam, bang, bang. Okay.
That's why I've got you looking over my shoulder. Let's talk about the text tool for a little while. It's this T over here on your tool palette, and the hotkey for that is T as in text. Kind of obvious. The way you would start text on a screen is, now, before I actually do that, I want to call your attention to the options that we have for text. Go ahead and just click down right where you see the I-beam cursor on your screen. Click once, and you're going to be presented with a flashing cursor.
I want to tell them about this, too. On the I-beam, you'll see a little crosshatch down there towards the bottom. That's exactly where the baseline of your text is going to be when you start to type. That'll be the bottom of your text.
Right, so you can use that to gauge where you want the bottom left-hand corner of your text to start. Now, you can see that this flashing cursor is kind of large right now. The reason it is I've got this set to 72-point type. So when I start typing,
it's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge. I'm going to type 3D Buzz
You're really having a hard time spelling today, aren't you?
I really am. I don't know how many mistakes in spelling I've done yet. Now, what we've got here is it's created 3dbuzz.com in the color that is in this swatch up here in the options.
You can change that color, though, right? Several different ways.
There's a number of different ways that we can change it. The easiest way would be just to click one time in that swatch, and we get presented with the color picker. From here, since we all know how to use the color picker, I'm going to change it to something that's going to really, really stand out against that background. So I'm going to change it to red, and I think what I did is I forgot to actually select the text.
Yeah, you really need to select it to get it to change.
Tip. You can change the color from anything that we start typing now is going to be in red. But if we want to change or edit the color of the text that we have previously, what we need to do is highlight the text just like you would in any kind of Word program.
Microsoft Word.
There you go.
All that good
just
fun
click,
stuff.
select the text, then change the color to something that'll stand out.
Oh, that's going to stand out, all right.
That stands out.
It's
now,
Ducky's beak.
A nice big red color. Now, we can also move this text around. Even though I'm kind of in the text editing mode right now, I can select and, like change colors and whatnot to of individual pieces of our text. I can also move this text layer around. Notice we do have a text layer with a T. I can move this around my screen if I just move my cursor outside.
You didn't have to get the move tool to do that, though.
If I pull my cursor far enough away from the text in any direction, it temporarily changes to the move tool, which allows me to conveniently move the text around, place it, and go right back to editing.
So it's just kind of moving that layer around then.
Exactly. Nothing major. Nothing fantastic there. But
hey, change that. Let's see. Red, white. Change the Z's to white. And change the OM to blue.
Change the Z's to white.
I'm feeling a little patriotic today.
And the OM to blue?
Yeah, red, white, blue. There
I'm going to go choose blue from the swatches over there.
There you go.
Now we've got red, white, and blue.
I'm feeling a little better about this.
Kooky. Well, let's see if we can add a little bit more oomph to this horrifying 3dbuzz.com.
Hey, don't call my website name horrifying.
You know what? The colors of this
that's a little bit better.
are extremely horrifying. Let me add www in front of that just so we can.
There is one member on 3D Buzz that is actually very, very kooky. Guy goes by the name of Rookie. Scary little fella that guy is, I tell you.
Uh-oh.
Hey, he can't even spell his own name.
A.K.A. Kelly Romeo, I ain't pretty to look at. That's me. Thank you, ladies and
Not
gentlemen.
Kel E.
Kel E, the male version. So we have 3dbuzz.com. Back to business here.
He's really having a hard
D in
time
there.
today, folks. And it is getting a little late. Not very late, but a little.
Late enough for me. Let's try something else. We've got our baseline here. It's a nice horizontal line. Let's try having some fun by warping the text. Up here in the options, we've got the ability to warp our text. By clicking on this little box, we bring up our warp text dialog. If I can change my style, and click on this thing, you can see there's lots of different types of warps that we can do. I'm going to just choose the arc right now, and it's positioned to horizontal.
I'm spent. That's too much fun for me, dude.
That's it. As I change the bending to either a negative number or a positive number, I change the bend of the arc, and I can actually change the horizontal distortion or the vertical distortion.
That's excellent for logos and things like that.
Really good for logos and creating that Indiana Jones kind of look, you know, that swoosh. That
Hey, it looks like 3dbuzz.com's coming from over the dune there.
Hey, we could have some fun with that.
Throw some motion blur on that puppy.
And we can do things like bulge, even some inflate, and squeeze. So you can have all sorts of fun with these things. Go ahead and play with them. You can do these either horizontal or vertical.
And that's the warp text tool?
The warp text tool.
Up there by the color picker there.
Right next to the color swatch there.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to say cancel to that and go back to the boring old flat 3D Buzz because I want to show that you can actually change the...
You're really ripping on this old 3D Buzz thing today, aren't you there, Kelly?
Yes.
This boring old flat 3D Buzz.
I think I should have used a different word instead of 3D Buzz. That way I don't get harassed for it. I can change the orientation of the text on screen by clicking this little button next to the first option that we have. It changes the text orientation from a horizontal to a vertical. Kind of wacky, right?
Might want to shrink down your text size just a little bit so you don't lose your
and this works in
text
reverse
off the
here.
Screen.
So I'm going to drop the text size here from this little menu down to something more like, a little bit bigger than 24, maybe 48, and move that down there. We also have some other options. We can select the text and change the font type from the first menu here. And if you've had any time spent in a word processing program, this is pretty basic stuff. Some fonts give you bold, italics.
Okay, so the first option over there is the horizontal to vertical text, and then you choose that little arrow there, and that changes your font type. Then it goes into the style of the font, italic, bold, stuff of that nature.
Correct.
Then size.
We can change the point size of our type there.
Now, I'm interested in this smooth thing over there. Does that have to do with the pixels going around the text or anti-aliasing or something of that nature?
Exactly. These are the different anti-aliasing modes that we can use here, the sharp, crisp, smooth, and strong. To really focus on what that's doing, I'm going to have to zoom in really close to maybe the B here, and I'm going to use the marquee drag so we can take a close look at, actually I want to do it for the 3 because that has a nice round edge. We can really see what's happening. When I go back to the text tool and change between smooth and let's say crisp, you can see a little bit has happened. Let me change it to none real quick. We'll start from there.
Oh, that really
When
steps.
I say none, we have zero anti-aliasing. And zero anti-aliasing, you could kind of think of it as like a little teeny gradient at the edge of our letter, okay?
Come on, change it back. That's really ugly.
That is ugly. Let's change it over to sharp, and you can see that we get a bit of anti-aliasing or this little gradient. It's a smooth transition. It's easier on our eyes, and it blends better inside your image. And so we can change this to like crisp. You don't see a whole lot there, but when I go to strong, you can kind of see more of an anti-aliasing. Really, really helpful if you're using small text. I'm going to go ahead and bump back out. If you have small text in Photoshop, like anything under 14-point type, it's going to be difficult to see. So you can change these to like a crisp or a sharp just so that you add more anti-aliasing to make it more visible on screen.
Let's throw some fun in there.
Let's throw some fun in. What I want to do is get back to my horizontal by clicking on that horizontal button there. And let's do a drop shadow.
Now
what I'm going to
do
is I'm going to change the font to something that's really fat. I want a fat font, like Impact here. See that? And I'm going to pump up the size to maybe 72 or maybe go all the way up to 90. Move that back there. Now
That is a fat font.
that's a fat font. Well, I mean fat, thick. We just say thick font so that we can really see what's going on in the middle. I'm using all the wrong words. You know, you're never supposed to talk about this stuff when you're using your logo's name because
Gotta put that font on a diet.
inevitably you're going to say the wrong thing and you're referring to your product. Down here in my layers palette, I have the text layer, and I'm going to add a couple special effects. We're going to add a layer style by clicking on this little layer style button down here and choosing drop shadow. That's going to bring up our layer style palette, this big box here, and from here you can see that I chose drop shadow, so already we're starting to get a pretty nice little drop shadow there. I can simply, if I want to change the distance, I have a slider to change the distance, but you know it's a handier feature to just go into your image, click it, and drag it. You can see that
pretty
my
cool,
Is that something new to 7? Because I don't ever recall using that.
That's because you
Nope.
don't really explore around that much.
Yeah.
It's actually in previous
Not
versions.
into exploration.
It's actually in previous versions, so it's nothing new to 7.0. But just in case you're too lazy to move the slider, just go ahead and grab the thing and move it around. Okay. I might want to drop the opacity in there a little bit. You okay, Gump?
I'm doing just fine.
What's going on back there?
First of all, I have to tell everybody this.
Oh, no.
I had a really bad headache, so I decided that I was going to get some Excedrin over here. And I think a chunk of it got on my finger as I was putting it in my mouth, and then I rubbed my eye, so now my left eye is just beat up because it has Excedrin in it. So, first of all, I'm back here rubbing my eye.
It's all swollen up.
It is. It's just beat up. I cannot see out of it. And it feels like I have a little small elephant in my left eye. It's terrible. So I just keep scratching it.
Do we need to stop before you go?
No, we're fine. No.
Let's keep going.
It just won't go away.
You know what? Just work through the pain with me, pal.
I am. Trust me. Those fat fonts are killing me, buddy. Let me tell you.
How do I continue? Let's try it anyway. I've got a drop shadow going on here, and I have all sorts of options, and I can change the spread size, the size. Let's go ahead and add some more layer styles. Instead of just the drop shadow, I want to go ahead and maybe add a bevel and emboss to give it more of a 3D look. I put a check mark in the bevel and emboss, but notice that my options are still back on where drop shadow was. These are the drop shadow options as it says here. If I want to actually get to the options that are associated with bevel and emboss, I actually have to click down here next to the text name, and I get these options that are specific to bevel and emboss. Just to help a little
Kelly,
tip.
let me interrupt there for a second.
Sure.
Back on this gradient that drop shadow that you put on. Can
Back
we
over
play
here?
with the contour thing there just for a moment, just
Okay,
to show
the
the different
different quality?
types of the drop shadows that you can get?
You can actually modify the drop shadow by changing just the aspects of how it's actually created. Right now we're using a linear, which means it's going to go from black to transparent. If I change it to something really wacky, I can get this really cool.
Yeah, see, those are very cool.
And you have all sorts of different types here to get those wacky drop shadow effects. Very nice. Good point, Gump. Thanks for bringing that up.
Sure, man.
You
I
go
just
back
like
to
it.
those linear. Hey, there's so many different options, and there's no way to teach you all of them. So I encourage you to get in here and play. It's the only
Just
real
trying
way
to
learn.
explore more is all.
There you go. Okay, I'm going to add that bevel and emboss. We've got kind of a 3D look to 3dbuzz.com, and I can increase the depth size. I can, instead of using an inner bevel, I can use an outer bevel or a pillow emboss to kind of make it look like it's pushed in. I'm going to go ahead and stick with a outer bevel. Now I'm going to go back to inner bevel there. Changing the depth, we can adjust the size a little bit here.
Oh, that's pretty nifty.
Kind of soften up that as we change the size, so it kind of gives more of a balloony effect. And maybe even create a satin overlay, but just drop the opacity down. It actually creates the look of satin, very soft, smooth look. I'm going to drop the opacity of that and maybe even doing a color overlay. Now, currently it's set for red, but I'm going to just go maybe throw a blue on there, and it really has the effect of completely overhauling the text. Maybe even a no.
Can we stay away from fuchsia, please?
I'm trying not to use blue because it'll blend in with the background too much, so maybe there we go,
There you
something
go.
that'll stand out.
Little green.
That's standing.
We can even put a gradient overlay over this thing. Doesn't have much of effect right there, so let's try. Well, my gradient overlay was working just fine for me earlier. So
I know, and my eyeball was working just great about 30 minutes ago.
But as you can see, you have lots of different options for adding cool effects to text as well as to other things in other parts of your image. But it really is fun to play around with text with that. I'm going to go ahead and say OK to that and introduce you to some paragraphs. Now, just quickly, though, look at all the effects that we've added to 3D Buzz. We've got the drop shadow, the bevel and emboss, the satin, and the overlay.
Now, isn't this where you can turn off the effects one by one or turn them off as a whole?
I can turn off all of the effects as a whole by clicking this little icon, the eye, next to effects. Everything goes away, and we're left with what we started. I can turn those effects back on and just hide the visibility of the ones that I want, and eventually, if we hide all of them, we're going to get back to our original. So yeah, that's a way we can turn them all off and turn them all back on. Cool?
Looks pretty nifty.
Let's try creating
Sorry, I'm back here with this big towel wrapped around my eyeball at the present time.
Getting first aid by Angie. Thanks, Angie. Let's go ahead and change our text to a black. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and just click on black in my swatches so I make sure that I've got total black. I can do that even with my color picker open. Just choose black and say OK. I want the next part of my text to actually type in black. What I need to do here, oops, I actually did that before I wanted to. What I need to do here is create a text area.
Don't get ahead of yourself now.
Getting ahead.
It's all right.
What I want to do is create a text area so that I can actually type a paragraph in. The way we did this up here was to just click on the screen and start typing, which is good if we want to create 1 or 2 rows of text. Of course, you can actually hit your Enter key on the keyboard to create a carriage return. But if you want to do a large section of text, this is a better option. Click on the screen, hold your mouse button down, and drag out, kind of like a marquee selection tool would, drag out a text area. When you release, you're going to get these the transform handles again, and our blinking cursor starts up in the upper left-hand corner. Now, right now, my text is set for 90, so my blinking line is huge. I'm going to drop that down to something more manageable, like 24. My text is set for black, so now as I start typing, welcome to...
That's a pretty thick font there.
Is it a fat font, would you say, Buzz?
That is a very fat font.
Let me change that font a little bit. I'm going to select the text, and I'm going to drop it down to something a little bit more manageable, like maybe Arial.
Hey.
Something a little skinnier than maybe, right?
That's skinnier.
Just razzing you, Kelly.
Photo. See, I cannot type. Shape.
They should make it to where keyboards shock you, like every time you spell something.
Maybe to actually learn how to type here. I'm going to say blah.
Man, you'd be the
blah,
best spelling person alive.
No, Kelly would be laid out. We'd be giving him CPR right now.
No, he wouldn't.
Well, that's true. Whoa, that looks like it hurts.
Just pour some acetylene on him. It might do something.
Right.
Blech. There we go. So I've got blah, blech, blah, blah, blech. Okay? I'm going to copy that right there. I can either go up to my Edit menu and choose Copy, or my favorite, Control-C on the keyboard. I'm going to copy this piece of text, jump over to the end, push the space bar, and paste using Control-V or Edit Control-V. Okay? And I'm going to do this a couple times just to kind of create a Greek out the text of what would be a paragraph. Okay? Just so I can illustrate these next couple points. You can see these handles are like transform handles. These should be nothing new. We've kind of discussed these a little bit before. I can grab the corners and actually change the overall shape of my paragraph and stretch them up and down, whatever. Okay. But, you know, I have a whole bunch of options specific to the paragraph or to the characters inside my paragraph that we haven't actually seen before. Do you know there's a new palette? Not a new palette for Photoshop 7, but there's a palette that you don't see over here with our normal palettes. It's the Character and Paragraph palette, and you can actually find that by clicking this button next to the Warp text. Click that button, and you're presented with a whole new palette. As if this wasn't enough, yeah, there's more. We have character and paragraph.
You can also get to that character palette there by going to Windows and down to character.
You see those down there in the
have it.
windows? You can also get those by going down here. So I can switch between paragraph and character in case I close that down and I want to open that up. Okay, let's look at characters real quick. You're going to see a lot of the same things in the character palette as you do up here in the options. Things like the text size is just the exact same thing as the text size here. You can see the anti-aliasing, same thing. Let's take a look at some of the things you might not see up in the options, like this kerning. Kerning is the distance between text or between letters in
So it's not the distance between individual words, it's actually the distance between individual letters of the word.
Thank you for specifying that. Yes, it is. I'm going to go ahead and put my cursor in between the T and the O in Photoshop and drop down the kerning and add something in a positive number like maybe 200 just to really see the effect. As I do that, you can see that there's now a space between the T and the O. You can even go ridiculous amounts by actually highlighting that and putting in like 800, and you can get a wider gap.
There's also another way that you can add kerning in between individual letters, and it is by choosing in between the letter and holding the Alt key and then pressing the right arrow key.
Hold the Alt key and press the right arrow key, and you can
that's very
just
nice.
change these numbers. And actually notice what's happening in the kerning. Our numbers are changing as I hit the right arrow key. Good one. Good
That's
one.
out of my secret little gump box there, Kelly.
That's the smallest little box I've ever seen.
I wonder if that's documented anywhere. I'm going to change that back to 0.
Very nice.
And just like the kerning, we have something that's called leading, which is the distance between two rows of text. See, between Photoshop and the first line of blech, okay, we can actually increase the amount of space in between there by changing the leading. If I jump this up to like maybe 72 points, you can actually see I've added space between the selected layers there, or the selected rows of text. Obviously, let's maybe drop that down to 18, and we can see we've got a little bit less than normal. I think I'm just going to go back to auto and let it reset itself there.
So while we're talking about lines of text, can we go ahead and tell them how to select maybe an individual word, then an individual line, so on and so forth?
Good one, good one. If you want to select, should we start with an individual word? Let's start with that.
There you go.
If you want to select just an individual word, instead of actually clicking and dragging, you can just double-click. And it will look at that word and look for the nearest space, and it will select it. So just simply double-clicking on the word Photoshop selects the whole thing. Now, if I want to select an entire line of text, I would triple-click. Click, click, click. Grabs the whole entire line, just so that you can quickly edit, delete, whatever. If I want to grab the entire paragraph, it's a quadruple click. Click, 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 grabs the whole thing. 4 clicks, and you've got the whole entire paragraph.
And
Good
I think
tip.
the quintuple, is that how you would say that?
Click, 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 click.
Selects the whole...
I think I just rotated it around.
Gotcha. So it's just up to 4, right?
Up to 4 clicks, and you've got the whole paragraph.
Gotcha.
All right, well, that's actually a great tip there, Gump. Thank you.
It's a lot of clicking, though.
A lot of big clicking.
Big clicking.
Big clicking going on. All right, let's take let's look at some more options down here in our character real quick. We can highlight a word, and we can actually make them all caps or small caps or postscript and subscript. We can even underline them or we can strike through. So some other things you've got here. Now, this new little pop-down menu here, this is really cool. These are different languages that Photoshop 7 can now spell check for. This is really cool, and this is new for Photoshop 7. We can actually do spell checking, and for somebody like me, it's a godsend. Thank you very much, Adobe. If I have a layer selected, I can come up to Edit and go to Spell Checking. Or Spell Checking, Check Spelling. I need help on my speaking, too.
Okay, Kelly, sorry to break in here, but I just went to wash my eye out with the.
It fell off.
Drinking, don't make me laugh.
I just went to wash my eye out with the local water around here.
The local Dixon water.
It burned a lot worse than that aspirin ever could have.
Oh, good
Let me
jobby.
tell you.
That's why I buy water.
Oh, Lord.
So I was saying your eye just fell out.
Wow, your eye really is puffy and quite red.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
No,
I
that's,
just now
Throw some
noticed.
aspirin in your eye, buddy. It'll
no,
really
that's
feel
why I
good.
smacked him earlier.
That's right.
So I'm not going to go into
It's rough being a buzz
How to-
student, I tell you.
he smacks us around. I'm not going to go into all the details and nuances of spell checking. I'm sure you've done that before, but there it is for you. It's handy. Please use it, or in my case, I will use it.
Yes, that
quite
is
a lot.
something that you probably need to really get into there, Kelly.
Now, all this time, I've been working inside my area here, my little bounding box for my paragraph. If I want to finish my edits and then get out of that and kind of accept the edits, the simplest way that I can think of is just go select another tool. Like if I went up to the Move tool and clicked on it, now I'm no longer in that edit mode for that layer.
So you can affect the paragraph the same way you can regular text. You could do the type warp and rotate it. And
Certainly can. It does take a little bit more processing power, but I can actually go in here and choose that arc. Whoops, I accidentally hit OK. So we've got to wait for a second.
No.
And we've got warped text. I'm going to undo that before I crash.
The poor
Bruce's
computer's got
computer.
his tongue hanging out.
Let's take a look at
It's
some more of the
smoking.
things that we can do with paragraphs as well. If I want to get that back into that edit mode, I simply just click and drag. It remembers that this was part of a paragraph, so it's going to just put those bounding boxes around it again. And look at what kind of options I have. I can align left, align to the center, and align right. I can also justify to the left, which pushes everything from one side to the other, center justify, and right justify, as well as justify all, which puts, bleh, not always the best. But I'm going to
Left justify
on this one so that I can show you some of these other options. These are the indentions. If I want to add maybe 15 points of indention, I get 15 points from the edge of the bounding box on in. Same thing with the other side. 15 points, blah, blah, blah. Now I can also, anywhere a paragraph starts, I can indent, maybe, let's say, 20. And you can see that now the W's been pushed in. Now, this next line down here is for when a new paragraph is started. At 0 right now, let me go ahead and click at the end of one of these lines and hit Enter to create a carriage return. It's still going to accept the 20 points for the indention, but it doesn't put any space in between. If I wanted to create a little space in between, let's say maybe 25, it's actually going to create space between my paragraphs.
Okay.
I got something that I do want to see, though.
What's that?
Please tell me it doesn't have anything to do with paragraphs.
No,
Yeah, let's
okay.
get
It
off
has nothing to do
paragraphs.
with
We're
paragraphs.
done.
This is a nifty little thing, though. I kind of like it, and Kelly was actually showing us before we started this little section here, the cutout.
Oh, the burn-in?
The burn-in, is that what it's called?
Yeah, the burn-in
It seemed to
effect.
go really fast, so I just wanted to see exactly how you did it. It's kind of a nifty,
So
cool
so
little
we're
way.
done with paragraphs?
I think we're done with paragraphs unless you want to
Yay.
see
No,
something
no,
else. No more paragraphs.
No.
Okay,
I feel like I'm
gonna
in a
go
word
ahead.
processing class.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, this is obvious stuff. Let's go ahead and actually hide the paragraph.
Yes.
And we're going to hide Ducky. Sorry, guys. Bye-bye.
Oh,
Just because
mascot
you
is
said
now
that,
gone.
I'm going to put Ducky. I'm going to put Ducky over on the other side and keep him there. I'm going to introduce you to something else. We've talked about text. We can actually create text as vertical type, but there's another one that's called horizontal type mask and vertical mask.
Ooh.
These can be a little misleading. When we create type, normally we're actually creating a type layer. If we wanted to affect this as a normal layer, like one with pixels, like Ducky down here, we would have to rasterize these layers before they become actually pixelated. The horizontal type mask is not necessarily text. It's actually just a selection area that looks like text. Let me go ahead and illustrate that real quick. I'm going to come down to the lower corner here, and I'm going to click once. Watch what happens to my screen. everything turns red.
Sort of looks like the quick mask.
It really does. When we get into quick mask mode, this is going to look extremely familiar. Everything going red, and you're thinking, uh-oh, something's wrong. Not really. Because I'm in a mask mode, everything went red, and now I'm going to go ahead and change my font back to Impact, bump it up to maybe 60, and type 3D buzz.com and move that over. Okay, so I've created my text, but remember, it's not really a text layer. It's only a selection layer or a selection area that looks like text. Let me illustrate. I'm going to go ahead and click on my rectangular marquees tool to bump out of that mask mode, and you can see that I literally
So it really is
have
just a selection.
Correct. It didn't create any new layers for me. It's just a selection. We can use it like any other selection.
So
I'm going to go ahead and...
It didn't create a new layer for you, or it does create a new layer?
No, like this layer 1, actually, this is where the ducky was.
There's
no new layer created when you're using a mask.
I see. So it just
text.
makes the actual text selection more or less.
Correct, and it
Okay,
still
cool.
functions just like a regular selection area. We
Can
move
you
it
make
around.
a layer out of it, or
You can make a layer out of it. Like right now, I've got my background selected, so anything that I do inside the selection area is going to affect the pixels of that particular layer. If I wanted just the pixels inside the selection layer or selection area to be on its own layer, here's a handy little shortcut. Control J will literally copy these pixels. Control J. It will create a new layer and paste those pixels right on. I'm going to turn off my background layer so that you can see I've actually got those pixels copied, created a new layer, and pasted on there.
Gotcha.
You could have done the same thing through the old edit, copy, paste, create
so you
new
pretty
layer.
much want to have your text and then move it exactly where you want to leave it before you go through this process. Because if you were to move that layer 3, which is where it says 3D Buzz now, it is...
See how we're getting that?
There you go.
Yep. So we want to make sure that it's right back where it was. So I'm going to edit or delete that last move there so it's right in there. You can't see it because, of course, it looks exactly like the layer underneath it. But let's go into the image, adjust, and come down to hue saturation. And I'm not interested in changing the color or even interested in changing how much of that color, but I am interested in changing the brightness. So I'm going to lower the lightness.
Oh, now it really stands out.
And now you can see that it's standing out. I'm lowering the value of all of the pixels on that layer.
Pretty cool.
By just dropping the lightness. And I don't need too much for this effect, just a little bit. And I'll say OK, just to make it stand out from the background a little bit more. On that layer 3, I'm going to actually rename that layer to text. I'm going to go in and add an inner shadow from my layer styles. I'm going to create a inner shadow, which brings up my layer style.
Wow, that looks
and
good, just like it is.
you can see that it just creates that shadow. I'm going to just say OK to that because I kind of like
that
the
looks
defaults.
good.
Now it makes it look like it's burnt in to the image itself.
Awesome.
So up there at the top where it has 3dbuzz.com, it kind of more or less gives it that bevel and emboss. Is that what it was? And then down at the bottom, we've kind of burned it in. So the top one stands out, and the bottom one kind of sinks into that dune.
Inside. Absolutely.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. All right, well, say goodbye to Ducky, guys.
All right, I think that pretty much wraps it up for our text section, huh?
Bye, Ducky.
All
I
right,
think so.
Thanks, guys.